of Israelis now think Netanyahu should cancel the speech, according to a poll conducted by Israel's Army Radio. 47% versus 34% who say he should go ahead with it. Many prominent Jewish Americans think the speech is a bad idea, too, including Abe Foxman, national director of the Anti-Defamation League, who's now calling on Netanyahu to scrap it. While Israeli diplomats have reportedly been warning that Israel's friends in the U.S. fear it will harm the ties between the two countries.
Benjamin Netanyahu is no shrinking violet. The man is determined to protect his country, his people, and his religion at any cost. And with one scheduled appearance, he is either going to infuriate his greatest ally, or he will infuriate the people back home who are tired of being bombed and terrorized. Benjamin Netanyahu is indeed at a crossroads, and the direction he takes will impact a good part of the world, especially the United States. Our guest is founder of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, the former mayor of Shiloh, and the author of Sparks from Zion. Let's welcome back David Rubin into MidPoint. David, it's a pleasure to talk to you again.
Well, thank you, Ed. Good to be back with you.
We hear all these different numbers, and we just had it here as we came into the segment, telling us that the people of Israel want Benjamin Netanyahu to cancel his speech to Congress. Is that true?
Well, it depends on which people. It depends on which side of the political spectrum they're on. The fact is that the announced speech has caused a bit of a furor on both sides of the ocean. Over in Israel, the left wing of the political spectrum, his main opponents in the elections, Herzog and Livni, are going crazy because they're very concerned that he's going to make a speech on the level of Winston Churchill that I believe needs to be made. But they're very concerned about that because they feel it might impact the elections.
Well, let's just get to that. You mentioned something like
attacking.
a Winston Churchill might say, David. What exactly do you mean by that? A declaration of war?
No, not at all. I think that what needs to be said is that Congress needs to be made aware, the American people need to be made aware of the nuclear bomb threat from Iran. Let's remember that Iran is the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism. They are doing exactly what their founder Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini said, which is that he wants to export the Islamic Revolution. So they are exporting the Islamic Revolution to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to Fatah, and to ISIS. That, even though they're opponents of ISIS, they're still working hand in hand because their goals are ultimately the same. So we have to remember that, and what Netanyahu wants to speak about is that the deal that is going to be signed with nuclear Iran, and the deadline, I might remind you, is on March 24th. It's essential that he bring that message that is a danger to the world, that deal that Obama wants so badly to sign with Iran is a danger to the world. And I must point out that the Iranians have spoken to, in their parliament, Rouhani, the president of Iran, told his parliament that the Americans, and I quote, are begging for a deal. So what does that tell you right there?
Well,
the Iranians have the upper hand in negotiations, and Netanyahu needs to give across the message to the American public that this deal is a danger, not just to Israel, but also to the free world.
David, let me then ask about the president himself, because we continue to hear this, that there is chafing between the two world leaders here, that they're not happy with each other. Honestly, in your opinion and the opinion of those who follow, what is it that the president has to gain by trying to undermine Benjamin Netanyahu? What is this seething dislike that forces him to want the prime minister out?
I don't see it as a personality issue. I really don't. I think that there is content behind the disagreement. Obama wants to reach an agreement with Iran at all costs, and it doesn't matter to him if the Iranians continue enriching uranium. And when you enrich uranium up to the levels that they have been enriching uranium, and by which they supposedly will be allowed to, according to this agreement, then it can only be for nuclear bombs. I think that the president has come to terms with a future nuclear Iran, but Israel cannot come to terms with a future nuclear Iran. If we come to terms with a future nuclear Iran, then there will be no Israel. So we can't do that. We can't accept that.
How insulting is it to the Israeli people when the president here speaks about certain groups? He won't say the words radical terrorism or radical Islamists. He won't mention whether it's Jews or Christians that are involved in certain things. He seems to shy away from a lot of these characterizations. Does that insult the people of Israel?
Well, I don't see it as any sort of psychological insult. But it is a big mistake, because he's not calling a spade here. He is not calling the Islamic terrorism what it is. Terrorism isn't an enemy. Terrorism is a strategy that is used by an enemy, which is the Islamic ideologues who are seeking to take over the world, to destroy Western civilization, and to change it from a Judeo-Christian civilization to an Islamic civilization. And if that happens, then everyone is in trouble, because then Sharia law, that oppressive law that says that it's okay for a man to beat his wife, that says that all non-Muslims are second-class citizens, that would come into effect, and the whole world will be in trouble. The entire free world is in serious danger.
David, I've only got about 45 seconds left. There's the V15 Victory in 2015 political action organization in Israel. It's hired Jeremy Bird, national field director of the president's 2012 campaign. It's an anyone but Bibi campaign. Do you believe the president is behind this?
Well, I believe it. We don't have any specific proof of it at this point, but it's clear. Jeremy Bird was Obama's field director in 2012. It doesn't seem to be an accident. Let's put it that way.
There are never any accidents, and I always fear that there are never quite any coincidences, at least not in politics. We want to point out to everybody once again that the book is called Sparks from Zion. And of course, what is happening with the Prime Minister of Israel, his speech coming up very soon, it is something that we will watch, and David and his friends will watch as well. David, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Take care. There is nothing more important to anyone seeking political office than money. It trumps everything for everybody. And what we're seeing now is people thinking once again of following that money and rooting out the corruption, if indeed they can find it. We'll talk about that and so much more when we question everything. MidPoint continues.